Well, welcome to Season 1, Episode 2 of the Rugby League United Podcast, where the biggest names discuss their life, their career, and their mental fitness, their mental health as well. Special focus today on purpose and goal setting at a time where we've all kind of pressed pause on our lives. And we're in the company, as you can see, of another Rugby League legend, one of the greats, one of the greatest players in Super League history, one of the most successful players the sport's ever produced. 8 Super League Grand Final wins, 3 World Cup challenges, 2 Challenge Cups, Great Britain, England. The list goes on. Danny McGuire, great to see you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks, George. Yeah, great.
How has this period been for you?
Do you know what? It's been challenging. Don't get me wrong. I think everyone's in the same boat. But I think I'm always of that mindset of you just got to try and make the best of it. And I've actually found myself gardening, cleaning, and cleaning the cars, doing things that I probably wouldn't normally do. So spending obviously a bit, more time with my family, my little boy. I've actually hurt my shoulder bowling thousands of cricket balls at my little lad. So I suppose my mindset of it is just take each day as it comes, and I know hopefully we can get back to normal in sooner rather than later, and get back to playing some rugby league, some sport, and just life in general, really.
Earl Crabtree on the first episode of this said last week he was actually really enjoying the kind of the time and the staying at home stuff. It's the uncertainty and the managing that is, I guess it's the balance between the two things. Because if we knew where we were heading, we'd be fine, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just that, when's it going to sort of loosen off a little bit with the lockdown, and just seeing family members and socialising. I think that's the biggest thing, just being able to go for a coffee with your pal and not worry about being 2 meters apart, being able to shake his hand and ask him how he is, and just little things like that I'm missing, and being able to catch up with your mates for a beer on a Saturday night and have the family around for a barbecue. Them type of things are probably the things that I'm kind of missing. But on the flip side of that, I've been at home with my little boy and my wife, and all the family have got together every week for a quiz, which we probably wouldn't have done, without being in lockdown. So I suppose you just got to take the positives out of it.
This unique period, it is a unique period in all of our lives. It's come at a time for you when you were already really having to manage change, weren't you? That transition from professional sportsman to retired sportsman. What impact has this lockdown had on that process that you were going through?
Yeah, I mean, I was really content when I finished playing, George. I made a decision at the start of last year that I was going to retire, and I never wavered all year. I knew it was the right time, no matter what had happened, whether I'd have had an unbelievable year or my decision never changed, and I'm really content with my career and everything that's happened. And I walked off the pitch in the last game in one piece, and I was really happy with that. And I went, obviously I've got a job at KR now, and I'm learning. I've got a job in doing the recruitment, doing some coaching, a bit of work commercially. So before all this sort of came around, I was getting a good understanding of the whole business and what it takes to be part of an organisation, and I was enjoying that. So actually, I think this little bit of time away from rugby league's probably been good for me, if I'm honest. I think I've been playing the game since I was a kid, and I think sometimes you can get caught up in rugby league does dictate, especially professionally, it dictates your life. You have to give up certain things, you have to make sacrifices throughout your career, and everybody does that. We get paid to do something we love, so I'm not moaning about making sacrifices, because that's just part of the nature of the playing professional sport. But this little bit of time, I've been able to crack open the red wine and have a few more beers and not worry about having to go to training or playing on a weekend. So it's probably been quite refreshing for me, if I'm honest. And but what I will say is, it's given me that hunger for rugby again. I think.
Right, that's good.
I reckon this will do it for a lot of people. I think we've probably taken it for granted. Yeah. I really do. I think you just get used to it being there and being part of your life, and sort of take it. I really do. I think a lot of people take it for granted. I hope this little bit of time away will sort of drive everybody's hunger a bit more, and we can grow and invest the sport. And and obviously it's gonna be tough because there's going to be a lot of teams and people struggling and organisations struggling, but hopefully we can come through the other side and grow as a sport.
Well, how is it at your club? Is your, I mean, you barely started in that new rally. Is your job secure? I know your club has been one of the more vocal about the financial impact.
Yeah, we you know, it's tough. It's really tough. You know, we've got a fantastic owner in Neil Hudgell who's, you know, keeping the club going. There's lots of, you know, obviously pay cuts across the whole of the competition, and as a club, we all agreed to it because we knew it was the best thing for the club and the game. And without people like Neil, you know, unfortunately, our game probably doesn't survive. So it's going to be a really testing time for the club. I'm sure there's going to be some tough decisions made off the field with staff and probably players as well. It's not ideal, but you know, it's going to cost the club and the game quite a bit of money. This little bit of time out, sponsorship and ticket sales and everything else that comes with it. So, but like I said before, I try and hopefully we can see it as an opportunity to get through the other side and then grow the game and obviously try and, you know, I want to be involved with KR and try and take the club forward.
Just on a slight tangent before I ask you about your career, predominantly with Leeds and some champion sides, I'm fascinated by the focus, the drive, and the kind of goal setting and the mental health aspect of that, which you must have fine-tuned to be able to achieve what you did. On a slight tangent, you were supposed to be around about now doing the Rugby League Cares cycle.
Yeah, I would have just got back. I probably would have been in an ice bath at the minute still. Ice bath for a week after I got back.
So what was that? What kind of commitment was that going to be?
So I jumped on it pretty late, actually. With Rugby League Cares, I'm good friends with Tracy, who works at Rugby League Cares, and she was badgering me to get involved. And obviously then when Rob was ill and Sam Burgess jumped on to raise money for Rob and MND, and obviously then we had the tragedy with Mossy getting injured, and so Tracy badgered me to get involved and raise some money for Mossy and Rugby League Cares. So I jumped on it. I think I probably would have had about 8 to 10 weeks training preparation, and if I'm actually doing a lot more biking now, but what I have realised is I wouldn't have been ready for it, to be honest with you. The 90 or so miles a day, I probably underestimated, if I'm honest. But hopefully we're going to run it again same time next year, and I'll be able to get a year's worth of training and practicing and do myself justice on the ride, and hopefully be able to raise a bit more money as well. So although ideally we would have, you know, probably we would have finished it and would have been probably back home by now, but gives me a bit more time to, I suppose, get match fit, as you would say, in rugby league.
I reckon, mate, it'll be one of the, for someone like you who's achieved everything you have, doing that would be one of the most fulfilling things you could ever do. And I did a similar thing last summer with the Steve Prescott Foundation, where we did like the 10-year anniversary of when Steve basically flew to Barcelona and cycled back with Scully and rode across the Channel, and then, you know, just 90 mile a day through the Pyrenees. And we did that with Steve's son Taylor, 17, leading it last summer, and it was incredibly difficult. But the team spirit and togetherness,
definitely.
Honestly, one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done, and it's kind of a sign of what can be achieved when you have strength in numbers. Every day, someone picking someone else up who they knew was struggling.
And I think that's almost like being part of a team, innit? That's been, you know, when you retire, and we hear about players that are struggling after retirement, you know, and it's probably finding that sort of environment where you've got people around you that are driving you and little targets to achieve, which you have every day in sport, in professional sport, in rugby league. You want to get stronger, you want to get fitter, you want to be prepared to play on a Friday night. Whereas when that finishes, sometimes it can be a lonely place because you've not got them sort of, you know, things driving you. So, yeah, I think that was probably one of the reasons why I accepted it, because, you know, I've always enjoyed a challenge and a test, and it would have been a test without a doubt. And but hopefully now I'll have a little bit more practice, a little bit more miles in the legs to do it justice. You'll
surprise yourself, I know you will. Let's talk a little bit about that then. You're a Leeds boy who adores rugby. You became a legend for your hometown club. When we talk about goals, was that a childhood goal for you?
To be honest with you, it was really strange how everything happened for me, George. I was playing for East Leeds. I just moved from East Leeds to Hunslet to play my own age. I was about 12, 13, and I think at that age you're just playing sport. And I played cricket, I played rugby in the winter, cricket in the summer. I loved it, loved my sport. And I remember I got a phone call off Eric Hawley, who was the Wigan scout. He came to watch me play. He was actually a friend of my granddad. So anyway, I'll cut a long story short. Bob Pickles came to watch. And within a couple of weeks over Christmas time, I went to watch, I remember it, went to watch Leeds and Castleford on Boxing Day with Leon Price. Leon Price's mum and dad were there, and they were trying to sign Leon Price at the same time. And within, this probably all happened within 2 or 3 weeks. I'd signed a 6-year contract at 12 years old. And from then on, it was just like, well, I always remember I used to go to careers advisors at school, and they'll be saying, right, this is what you're going to get for your GCSEs. What do you want to do? Do you want to go into A-levels? Do you want to go to university? Do you want to go be a fireman, a policeman? I go, I'm going to play a professional rugby league. And they were like, no, come on now, be serious. You need to have something else. And I kind of just sort of made my decision then that's where I was going to get. And that got all my attention. And, fortunately enough, it kind of came off. And, I wouldn't change a second of it.
Did hearing that kind of knocking of your goal, did that give you more drive and focus to prove people wrong?
I suppose so, because I think probably at the time I probably underestimated it. We used to go training. Rob signed, so we used to have like what they call a club session, and we would have been like 13 years old, and we'd go training with the academy, the first team, and Bramley at the time, and you'd mix in, and it was unbelievable. But you probably don't, at that age, you still probably don't understand. And I think the structure now that the clubs have got with the scholarship and into the academy, there's a more clear pathway. At that time, I felt like I was just getting money on my birthday, and not really until I got to 16 and joined the academy. It was just a pipe dream. And then obviously left school and joined the academy, and then it kind of became real. So, but I suppose, you've always, whatever you do in life, there'll be people that doubt you or challenge you. And I suppose as a person, you've just got to be strong enough to. And I stood by that when I remember the careers advisors trying to push me into other things, and I wasn't having it. I'm saying I'm going to play rugby league, and like I say, the drive and determination to achieve that kind of came through. So pretty happy with that.
And when you were in the academy, I'm a big believer in life that there are opportunities for everyone. You just have to have your eyes open when they present themselves, and make sure when that door opens, you get through. Because if you don't, that opportunity will be gone. You need to walk through that door, make sure you stay in that room. Certainly for my career, that's kind of what happened. I knew if I worked hard enough, there would be that chance, and then it's up to you to take it. When you were in the academy at Leeds, what was your mindset about when and how you might get your opportunity? It was 2001, I think you got it.
Yeah, 2001. But I think previously the academy was so strong. I think we went through an era of maybe 7 or 8 years where we dominated the academy competition, and actually going into that environment, Dean Bell was in charge, and he was strict but very disciplined, and you respected him because of what he'd achieved in the game, and everything he said, you sort of hung off every word because of his reputation. The academy was almost like a environment. You prepared as if you were a full-time player, and the first year it kind of shocked me, and it took me a year in the academy to kind of adjust to that. I probably wasn't ready for that kind of commitment, and it wasn't until I went back in my second year academy that I bought into it, and we had a really good culture, and we kind of carried that on into the first team, if I'm honest. And all the boys for 2 or 3 years came through together, and we just had that winning mentality, and we had that drive and determination to succeed. And all of a sudden, fast forward to 2003-04, and 15 of us are really key players within that first team squad.
Well, let's talk a bit. I was actually going to fast forward to 2003, because you had that kind of couple of years establishing yourselves. And then one moment for me that sticks out was that 03 Challenge Cup semi-final.
Yeah.
At Huddersfield, when Leeds, I remember being there as a fan, and this for me was the biggest lesson you could see in being true to your beliefs and processes, because Leeds played really well and they were on top against Saints. They were behind, I think 2 points behind and pushing, and then Saints scored, didn't they, in the corner to go 6 ahead with a kick to come.
Yeah.
And I remember that because I didn't have belief and faith in you. I was so annoyed. I went and got in my car when Saints were lining up the conversion.
I think a lot of people did, to be honest with you.
I went and got my car. They missed the kick, so you had a couple of minutes to try and rescue 6 points. And a teenage Danny McGuire sent it into extra time with the help of Kevin Sinfield's boot. And I was halfway over the M62, and I missed the whole thing. But you kept doing. Even you somehow had the ability to ignore scoreboard, ignore everything around you. And I've spoke to Kev about this, and focused on your processes, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Knowing that if you did that, it would be all right. Take me into that match, because I think about it a lot, and it was extraordinary.
I think that match probably would have catalyst for everything else that sort of came on the back of that. I think we'd had a little bit of time in 2003 and had some good results, and Darryl Powell probably deserves a lot of credit for the way he introduced the young players that year. Richard Mathers, Ryan Bailey, Nick Scruton, myself, Rob, Chev, Mark Calderwood. So we had a good, and we had some senior boys in there with Dave Ferner, Gary Connolly, Barry Mack, Keith Senior. And I think that game were probably, one of the games where, how can I put it? Leeds, probably a few years back wouldn't have been able to do that to St Helens. St Helens obviously have been really strong in the early 2000s, but that come from behind kind of win, push the club forward, if that makes sense. And obviously for me, it was kind of the day that sort of, for me, I sort of catapulted into the people's minds, and obviously really nice to come on and have an impact and win the game for the team. But so brilliant day for me, and then 2 weeks later I don't get picked for the final. So
I know
emotions like from ridiculously high to ridiculously low in the space of 2 weeks.
I think about that period a lot as a life lesson. How Leeds kept doing things. It's kind of be true to what you do and keep going through your processes, because just ignore everything else and keep doing what you're doing, because if you're doing it right, then you will get there. Albeit Kevin Sinfield adopted the same approach in the final and kept pushing at the end, and in hindsight it didn't work, because he turned down an opportunity to go for 2 points, and he had to deal with a lot of criticism for that.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and I think again that's having that belief. I kind of see it a little bit now in England Test cricket, and that's something very similar to the approach we adopted in 2003 for is attacking and taking your opportunities and not being worried about the consequences. And sometimes you make calls and you'll go for a pass that's a 50-50 and it might not come off. And you've got to be a strong enough character to be able to handle the setbacks as well as the applause and the congratulations that you get from special things. And that for me 2003 were brilliant for me, because I had some really good highs, but then the setback of not getting picked in a final, which I think looking back was brilliant for me. Everything had gone rosy. I probably needed knocking back a peg or two, if I'm honest. And although at the time I felt like I should have played, I really do. But it was good for me because it made me more determined to make sure it never happened again.
How was it communicated to you?
It was all right. Yeah, and I remember you always know when you're not playing, because the coach does it in a weird kind of way, because it's hard for coaches. It's really hard to make these big decisions, and I actually feel at times, felt sorry for coaches when you've got to make these calls. But I suppose that's what you're paid to do. And I remember getting Darryl Powell asking me to go down into one of the rooms in the stadium, and you know that conversation is not going to be a good one. And yeah, it was tough. I'd imagine Darryl was a very inexperienced coach, so it would have been a tough call for him to make. But I suppose you've just got to go with your judgment as a coach, and he felt like another way were the best way to go, and it nearly paid off, to be honest. They nearly won, but and it was good for me looking back. It was a little bit of a setback, but it kind of made, like I said before, it made me probably stronger and more determined.
How, at the time, I mean, you're saying that looking back with hindsight, how do you ensure at the time that you don't react badly because a lot of us do with setbacks in life. I mentioned with Earl on the first episode of this, I've had setbacks in my career and I've dealt with it really badly, and I've sulked. I've taken it as a blow to my ego, and I've gone and disappeared and hid in the corner of a pub. How do you make sure that you're saying that has built character and resilience?
Yeah. At the time, I was annoyed because I felt like I played the cast the week after the semi, scored, and I thought I'd done enough to get in the team, and it wasn't. I think sometimes you, as a player, you know when you're on the edge and you can kind of accept it, but I was 100% confident I would be playing in the final. So it was a shock, and I remember going into the old stand now, that's now the new beautiful stand, and sitting on one of the wooden chairs and had my hands in me over my eyes, and I were crying. I was dead upset because all my family were going down. They'd all set off that morning, and I knew I was going to have to make that call to tell them that I wasn't playing. So, and I know my dad and my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, they lived that journey with you. So it's horrible to have to tell them that you're not going to be playing. But I had to go down with the team to Cardiff and warm up with the team as 18th man. So I had to just grin and bear it. To be honest, I was disappointed, but you're in it with the team, and if you're sulking, it's just a bad message. And I think if I'm honest, I probably sulked for an hour before we set off on the bus, and then it was right, crack on with it and do what you've got to do.
If you don't go through those times, I don't think it gives you as much in the good side. It really, those travails enrich the success. And when Leeds, the following year, won the grand final for the first time, it was you scoring the winning try in front of the Leeds fans. Yeah,
and again, that's the sport gives you them massive highs and massive lows, doesn't it? That you've got to use to your advantage, and that and like I said, in the end of 2003, I was determined that whenever there were any big games, semi-finals and finals, that I was going to be the first name on the team sheet. So performance and everything else that you do off the field has to improve to kind of do that. And obviously we got Tony Smith came in 2004 and just totally give the place a facelift. Everything, he changed everything, and he was brilliant for all the young players. We ate off every word he said, and anything he threw at us, we attacked. And obviously then it paid off with us winning that, and obviously scoring and winning the grand final.
I want to talk about that dominant period when Leeds won 3 in a row against St Helens, 7, 8, 9, and the kind of infection of success, if you like, and how that affects your mentality. I just want to ask you one question about the Challenge Cup final in 2005, which was in Cardiff against Hull FC. Now, we talk a lot, and we've already mentioned it in terms of the importance of working as a team in these long charity cycles, and that's the only way that you make sure you all get through successfully to the end. Now, Leeds were huge favourites against Hull, and Keith Senior wasn't fit. Keith decided he was fit to play. And I remember John Keir, who was Hull coach at the time, saying, if Keith Senior is fit, I'm going to kit up myself and play for Hull. Keith played, and he ended up going off injured. Leeds lost the game, and it also, I recall, meant that Barry McDermott wasn't in the squad that day. Was that an example of individual overriding team? I've talked to Keith about this, so I don't.
I know. Yeah, I remember it, and at the time, I think we all wanted Keith to be playing because we knew on his day, he's destructible. He's the best centre. He's the best centre in the competition. So I get why the coaches did want him playing, and even as a player, if Keith Senior is not on the side of you, that's you start worrying a little bit. So when he declared himself fit, you just thinking he's going to do the job. He's going to tough it out, but his injury was too severe to do that. And I think it's tough. Like, injuries are interesting if we want to talk about it now. But as a player, it's you want to play. Don't get me, any game, no matter what, And I see fans saying, "Oh, he's not interested and he don't want to play and he's got no passion." And I know for myself, I've played, and I don't want any sympathy because I know everyone else is going through it. You play injured, there's very, very rarely you play 100%, or if ever. So players make decisions sometimes. Sometimes it's the right one to play because you get through the game and you play at a 6 or 7 out of 10 and people don't notice. And then other times, players make a decision not to play when they potentially could have. So it's just a fine balance. And Keith made that call that day that he was going to get through the game and not let the team down. But unfortunately, his injury were too bad, and we probably underestimated Hull. If I'm honest, our preparation probably wasn't as good as it could have been, and probably went in there with a slight arrogance. So a combination of them things. Obviously, then Hull went on and won the game.
So that period of dynasty, 2007, 8, 9, Leeds had a hat-trick of grand final victories over St Helens, a real winning mentality. And I genuinely believe you actually had I don't know what you think, you had a psychological edge against Saints, because every time you nudged ahead in any of the subsequent games, they would have been thinking, blimey, here we go again. Do you sign up to that? And do you believe that success was or can be infectious?
I do, yeah, because I feel that once you it's like, how can I put it? It's a bit like so it might sound a bit weird. It's a bit like a vampire. First time it gets that taste of blood, it's thirsty. It wants more, and I think it's very similar in sport. You get them wins, and you get to lift the trophy, and the high that comes with it. You're like, right, when's the next one of these? When can I achieve something like this again? And but realizing that you've got to do all the hard work that gets you there, if that makes sense. And we had a really good work ethic at Leeds. Like, everybody sort of pushed whether that be in the gym, on the field. We're so competitive in training, and you can ask Jamie Jones and Kev, and we'd be almost fighting with each other because we were competing every day in training. And I think that was just a real good way of doing things. It just fit for us. We were all very competitive, and we wanted to win. And we kind of, rather than, I remember after we won it in 2007, Brian McLennan came in and he's like, we aren't defending this trophy because that's negative. We're attacking it. We're going to attack it all year, and we're going to be, anybody talks any negative comments about defending, that's a negative comment. We're attacking everybody. They're going to come for us, and we're going to attack them. And that was just our way of sort of overcoming things and combating teams trying to attack us.
I'm genuinely fascinated by that mental approach where you become used to winning things, because I've read books and studies by people a lot wiser than me about how success can't be infectious, because by the very nature of believing you're going to win something just because you won it the year before, that means you're living in the past, which is pointless. So actually, all it's doing is just giving you the confidence because you've done it before. Yeah. Or is that oversimplifying it? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's right. It's right. I think I think that more the confidence in the people around you as well, and knowing that they're doing everything possible to get the result. And I think Jamie Jones is big on this. He always speaks about sort of, we had a changing room, 20 metres by 15 metres, and you look around and you know that the person that you sat alongside or opposite or next to has done everything right this week, and you just get that confidence from the players around you. And so every time, even more I think about it now, we probably should have had more confidence with the players that we had. If you look at our pack in that period, Gareth Ellis, Ali Lawatiti, Jamie Peacock, Danny Badeiras, Matt Diskin, Ryan Bailey, we probably should have had more confidence in how good we were. I know the Saints were brilliant at the time. They had a really good team, Jamie Lyon and all there, Sculthorpe and Long and, Cunningham and all people like that. But it's probably just the confidence in the personnel that we had around us that drove us every week.
When we talk about personnel, and especially in champion sides, and I've heard it referred to as kind of like a team is like a car. Yes, it might have the superstar. Danny McGuire, Kevin Sinfield might be the superstar engine, but without all the other components of that car, the other members of the squad, if a tiny little bolt comes out or the tyre's flat, then you can't drive anywhere. Who were those unsung heroes who gave you something that perhaps didn't get the plaudits? Yeah,
I totally agree with you there. And I think one thing that the club did really well was, you talk about the nuts and bolts. They got the right personnel in to tighten them nuts and bolts. And we had obviously myself, Rob, Kev, Key Senior, people that can do stuff with the ball, Brent Webb. And then obviously we had Jamie Jones Buchanan, Carl Ablett, Brett Delaney, people that just keep everything nice and tight. And sometimes, you might go away from a game and think, well, what did Delaney do today? But he's made 50 tackles, he's covered up for people. And I thought that the club always did really well in identifying that type of personnel that could add something to the team, really. And I think we were as a team, we were very unselfish. We were always about what could we do for the best of the team. Anybody that came in and was too much about themselves didn't last too long in the team, if that makes sense. It were all about the team ethos and making sure that we played well for each other. And I think that was probably one of our strengths.
So on the flip side of that, and it is the focusing on the greater good. When you do and you have played players who, I don't know if it's a God-given talent, but they have such talent, and they aren't perhaps able to manage the mental side of it, and therefore they don't achieve what they potentially could achieve. I'm thinking of players you've played with, perhaps like Zach, like Rangi Chase. Yeah. Does that frustrate you, where you're thinking, you have got so much more than a lot of people here, if you could just get the other stuff right?
Yeah, I've seen a fair amount of that, to be honest. And the one thing I would say, it's with the environment that and culture we created at Leeds, if you didn't buy into it and you weren't part of it, you got found out pretty quick. So you either got into it and acted like we all did and lived rugby league, or you kind of drifted off and went to play somewhere else, if that makes sense. So it's so hard. I mean, especially for young players nowadays, there's so many things going on outside of rugby, and more social media now. Everybody's under more scrutiny. So I understand it's a lot harder for younger players now than maybe it was in the early 2000s, when people weren't putting cameras in your faces as much and getting involved in your personal life. So it is tougher for the younger players. And but I suppose if you want to have a good career in anything, or you need to be a certain kind of person, and inevitably some really, really talented young players fall by the wayside because they aren't prepared to meet them demands, I suppose. But
when you say you need to be a certain kind of person, you can become that person. That's something that we as human beings need to work on. I've done an incredible amount of soul searching myself the last couple of years to try and deal with various things going on in my life. There's no one else that's going to do that for you, is there?
Yeah, and that's it. That's the thing. You've got to take responsibility for your actions and what you what you want to get out of rugby or life in general, I suppose. And you've got some tough, like I spoke about a little bit about sacrifices earlier on, and you've got to make that decision. If you're playing on a Friday night, that going out for a beer with your mates on a Thursday night is not a good decision. And if you've got a game on a Sunday afternoon, that going out on with your mates on a Saturday night is not a good decision to make. And it's tough. I get it. Some players, and us rugby lads, we're all 9 times out of 10 we're local working class lads that have come, played at their amateur teams and still got good connections with their amateur teams, good connections with their school friends. And sometimes you can get caught up in it and not really mean to do what you do, but it's just nature sometimes, and it's just hard. It's hard to see, but I've seen a lot of players make them wrong calls at times.
But there's nothing really that can, other than working on aspects of your own personality and makeup, there's nothing that can prepare a working class normal guy for the kind of attention that he will get just because he is a professional sportsman. In my career, I just wanted to get to the top of my field. I never wanted any of the fame or profile that came along with it. In fact, I absolutely hated it. Really, I've had media coverage good, media coverage really bad.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think how you might have. I only remember really one instance where you got a bit of a kick in, and that was 2010 when Leeds had a bit of a poor season. You had a decent one, and there was an incident when you got injured, wasn't there, in a professional foul against Wigan, and people started laying into you and saying, was it Phil Clark who said, oh, maybe it's something about the rugby gods?
The rugby gods, yeah.
Something like that. How did you make sure that was just water off a duck's back?
I don't know. Do you know? I think criticism. It's interesting because you do read. You read the papers, you read social. No matter if anybody tells you that they don't, you cannot escape it. If you played on a Friday, you're desperate to. You go on your phone and you know that there's going to be something there, positive or negative, and most players read it. And I don't know, to be honest with you. I've always been quite strong in my abilities, and I know what I'm capable of doing and can't do, and I've never sort of let criticism sort of, I wouldn't say water off a duck's back, but I never kind of I've always wanted to try and, if anybody ever did criticise, whether that be a coach or they were an example in my last year at Leeds, and a couple of times Brian McDermott questioned, and I went out and I thought, right, I'm going to show you, and that was kind of my way of proving a point, if that makes sense.
But do you think that's why he was doing it in the first place? Do you think that
maybe?
Was it?
And I don't know if it were a stroke of genius or not, or it was just. But yeah, I always tried to use it as a positive and kind of show you attitude that if anybody questions what I can kind of do, I'll show you the next week. Or but yeah, it's tough. I mean, especially social media now. I think that's the big problem for current players, is that thousands of people can then comment on, you make one mistake or one bit of controversy. Thousands of people can directly message you and tell you what they think about you. So you've got to be quite. If you're going to get into professional sport, you've got to be kind of broad-shouldered, I suppose, and be able to take the positives with the negatives.
Let's look at 2015 when the legends said goodbye. Leeds won the treble. Kevin Sinfield, Kylie Luluai, Jamie Peacock bid farewell. The strength of that leadership group was incredible, and then it was kind of down to Danny McGuire to take on the baton.
Yeah, no, 15 was a good year. I really enjoyed that year, and probably people might not believe it, but the lads that were leaving never really spoke much about themselves, or that again, that's probably another strength of the team. It were never, oh, let's go do this for Kylie and JP and Kev. It was there, it was in the background, and everybody, I can speak for myself. I knew I wanted them to finish the best way possible, but it won't really spoken about much, if I'm honest, because it was a bit of a topsy-turvy year. Kev didn't play the first part of the year. Kylie had a problem with his heart, so it was like a couple of times it were like, will all three of them all play together for the rest of the year anyway? So it was interesting how it were kind of playing out, and then the stars kind of aligned, and we won the Challenge Cup. Obviously, the game at Huddersfield is unbelievable. It's probably that last 2 minutes is the best feeling I've ever had on a rugby league field. Just the comeback, the win, and the celebrations after, and the helicopter coming back for us, and all them things.
Yeah.
And then I think it would just, no matter what anything were thrown at us after that, we were always going to win the final, because it was set in the stars, wasn't it, really, for them to finish like that. And don't get me wrong, that game against Wigan was a tough game. It was there were times in that game where Wigan could have probably run away with it middle of that second half, but we again, like I spoke about earlier, we just found a way to hang in there and obviously sneak it at the end.
Has your family just come back, by the way?
Yeah, my little boy's just appeared with his Lego. He's been building a stadium.
Is he?
Shut door to us. Sorry. Goodbye.
That's all right. You can come and say hello if he wants. The period after that was quite tough for you for a variety of reasons. How you took on the captaincy. I remember you getting quite a lot of criticism of people saying Danny McGuire's not a leader. I don't know why that was said about you. You never had a chance to be a leader, and at the same time, training ground was fluid. There were all kinds of ready-made excuses for you.
Yeah.
How did you deal with all that personally, where you've gone from this rugby career and life is perfect, and actually, blimey, it's really difficult suddenly?
Yeah, 2016 were my worst year in rugby. I hated that year. I was captain, made captain, and as a halfback, you're always a leader anyway. Whether people believe it or not, you're telling the players where to be. You're in control of the team. You're making decisions for the team. So you're kind of a leader, whether you're the captain or not. And I felt like I felt like I've got a good rapport with all the players. All my teammates. I've got on with every teammate I've ever played with. So I felt like, captain's fine. It wouldn't be no issue. You've got to spend a bit more time with a coach and a little bit more smoothing over things with a coach, and I was fine with that. But I just got injured that year, and I got injured the first game against Warrington. Did my medial ligament. I was out for a couple of months, and then I came back, played a couple of games, a bit rusty, and I injured my foot playing against Widnes. I remember it. I went to step and I cracked a bone in my foot, and I tried to play a few more games, but it was just no good, and we had a terrible year. We nearly got, was in the bottom 4, and I came in for a lot of criticism, and as you do when you're captain, you have to take it on the chin. Sorry. Take it on the chin, I suppose. And like I spoke about before, I remember in the end of 16, I was still carrying the foot injury, and I went back to training early on my own. Sorry about the noise, George.
That's all right.
I went back to training on my own. The physio came with me for 3 weeks, and I trained 3 weeks on my own. And that was just to make sure that the next year I had no excuses. If it fizzled out, then I'd retire, and that'd be it. I could be happy with how things have played out, but I wanted to give it one last shot. And that, going back to pre-season 3 weeks early and getting fit, and led to having obviously a really good year in 17, and then playing another 2 years after that as well.
When I started working kind of more in mental health in rugby league 18 months or so ago, I had a long phone call with Kevin Sinfield, because I wanted to pick his brain about various things. And I wanted to talk about perception of pressure, because my perception of pressure for him was those times when the game was on the line and it was down to Kevin Sinfield to put the ball on the kicking tee and win the game for his team, for his club, for his city, for everyone in the fans. And I couldn't get my head around how he could deal with that. I thought that was his pressure. And he just said completely opposite. He said, no, they're the moments I live for. That's me getting a chance to do my job. That's not pressure, George. You've got it all wrong. And I said, well, you must have felt some pressure. And he said, actually, it was the captaincy. It was the times when he was on his own. He would be in the dressing room. Maybe you've all gone out to warm up, and he's last one out because he's having a quick chat with the coach, and he's looking round, and there's none of you guys there. So he's filled with self-doubt, and he's thinking, I'm not the guy to lead these. And he said the same when you played away games, and he got the captain's privilege of having his own room, and you all room with each other. He'd be sat on his own, and again, he would have no one to bounce off to reassure him, and he'd have that self-doubt. I'm not fit to play with these guys tomorrow. And that really struck me, because I'd never even crossed my mind. It was those times of solitude and isolation that Kev was racked with self-doubt that he wasn't good enough to lead that team. As soon as he was surrounded by the likes of you and Jamie Buchanan, he was all right. And I was fascinated by that conversation, because I thought, I've got that completely wrong. What was your experience of that in your time as captain?
Well, again, I think that's similar to when I was speaking about when you kind of look around the changing rooms and the personnel that you've got at the side of you. It just gives you confidence, because you know that you've seen them in the gym in the week, you've seen the preparation, you know what the life they're living off the field, and it just gives you that confidence to be able to then go out and deliver your part of the bargain, I suppose. And that was probably one of the strengths. Is we all when we sat down and you were speaking about goal setting, and we spoke about what we wanted to achieve, we all knew it was without the 25-man squad or whatever it was, we weren't going to be able to get where we wanted to achieve. We knew it was a squad mentality, and individually, you might at times lift us and take us to, win us a game here and there, and but collectively we're probably our strength, really, and that sounds like what Kev's saying there. And I remember after regarding the rooms we captain and get the room, and I were the same. You want to be around the boys. You want to, because they're the good times for me for sport in general. Is the time you spend. You end up spending more time with your teammates than you do your family. Especially if you're playing. You've got away games. You double sessions. You're there Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. They become your second family. So, and I can 100% see what Kev's saying. You get confidence from the ability of your teammates, and knowing that they've ticked every box through the week gives you the confidence to go out and deliver your part of it.
Yeah, just that little gesture, which is supposed to be kind of your captain's privilege. Here's your own room. Actually worked to the detriment.
I think Kylie Lulawai took it off him at the end because he snored. So Kev swapped with it. Kev used to give him his room, and then I think Brad Singleton used to do it as well. So they get their own room, the snorers.
I've saved a couple of things that I probably wanted to talk to you most about on this podcast. I kind of guess that's just where they've fallen. I've saved to the last. I want to talk about Rob and Mossy in just a moment, and the impact that's had, and your feeling on all that. But I want to talk about 2017 and your farewell from Leeds. I always thought you were going to be a one-club man. I don't know about you. You signed off with true greatness, and we talk about leadership. What you did in the 2017 grand final, that was, for me, leadership personified. How were you mentally about leaving Leeds? Did you want to, or did you see Leeds as where it would start and finish?
17. It was a really funny year, to be honest with you. Because obviously I was going to be out of contract at the end of 2017, and normally what happens is, as a player, you get to May, just before May, when and you start speaking, and like you touched on that. At the time, I never even contemplated playing anywhere else. I always assumed I would play at Leeds, finish Leeds, get a job at Leeds, and that was kind of my thinking. And I remember sat down with Gary Everington and my agent, and it was good because I've always had a really good relationship with Gary. I class him as a friend, and he's always been really good to me, and he's still to this day. I've got a great relationship with him. But the first meeting we had told me that it was time to move on, if that makes sense, because there was some hesitancy there. There were not going to be a contract, maybe a contract, maybe not. And it almost made the decision easy for me, because I thought, I've been there for 20 odd years at the club, and I kind of, in the back of my mind, thought, go challenge yourself, go do something a little bit different. And actually, once I made that decision and signed for KR, that I played miles better the rest of the year, because the worry, not worry, I suppose, but it all been sorted, and my determination then was to finish my career at Leeds on a high. And I knew all the players. Again, nobody really spoke about myself and Rob retiring. It was in the background, but I kind of got the vibe that the lads were all buying into trying to make it a good finish for us. And obviously then we went on to beat Cass in the final, and probably one of the best days of my career, without a doubt.
What were your emotions like at that time? Obviously the euphoria from that, but also I don't know if there was any resentment or hatred that you left Leeds and it wasn't on your terms, or was it acceptance that perhaps...
I'll be totally honest with you. A little bit. Just because, how can I put this without... There were a little bit of inside of me. Again, like I said to you before, just wanting to prove a point type of thing, and that attitude. And it kind of worked, because it motivated me to keep playing well and prove that I still had something left. So I don't know. It might have been a little bit of I can't swear, but just to prove a point. And I've always believed in my ability, and I knew that I still had something left, and I knew I wanted to continue playing. That was one of the big things at the time. Leeds were saying, look, there's potentially a commercial job if you want to get involved. But I wanted to carry on playing, and that was the decision. And what I will say is, the 2 years I had at KR, I loved it. Really, really enjoyed it. It was refreshing. It was challenging, but it was, I'm really, really glad I made that decision to try something different and take myself out of my comfort zone. And but yes, 17, it were a brilliant way to finish, and kind of a fairy tale for me, really.
I read one quote from your coach Brian McDermott on your departure, which really resonated with what we're talking about, not only today but on this podcast series, about aspects of mental fitness. He said, perhaps the most impressive thing about Danny is the way he has adapted and evolved his game to suit both his teammates and the game in general. what do you think he meant by that? And is that the kind of way you've set about living your life?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've always been a good teammate. I've always put the team first. And yeah, I mean, I loved spending time with my teammates. I were always good at organising the socials, and whether that be going to the races and keeping. It's really important. The rugby's important, but actually being able to spend time away from rugby with your teammates is just as important. And I always felt that was really crucial. Even when I moved to KR, I was keen to get the boys together at certain times, and not always going out and having 20 beers, but sometimes you do need to, that little bit of time away where you can go and relax and not speak about rugby. And so I feel like, whether he was speaking about me off the field or on the field, but on the field, I kind of tried to, my game changed a little bit towards the back end. I lost a bit of pace and a few injuries, and you try and use your strengths for, I tried to help my teammates around me. I was more an organizer and a creator rather than a poacher, which I probably were in the early part. So I think like anything, you just adapt to the circumstances. And I always enjoyed being part of the team, and obviously we had a pretty good one as well. So I can't complain.
Well, it's that ability to adapt to the evolving world around us. It's kind of the lesson we're all trying to learn right at the moment. You mentioned your teammates, so let's finish on that point, and really emotional point, really, because since your retirement in the last couple of years, you've had devastating news regarding two of your teammates and your close friends, Mossy Massoy and Rob Burrow. Yeah. How did you react to those bits of news, Rob's diagnosis and Mossy's injury?
Yeah, I found it. I'll speak about Rob to start with. I was in Australia when I'd spent a bit of time with Rob previous, before I went to Australia in December, and he was having some tests done, and we were both like, "You'll be fine, don't worry about it." So it was like I'd gone to Australia and was doing some work. I was visiting some NRL clubs, trying to, a bit more experience, broaden my horizons a little bit. And I got a phone call off Kev, and I was in a hotel on my own because my wife and my little boy had not come across. I was in a hotel room on my own, and when I found out that it was going to get announced, and I didn't leave the room. I stayed in the room all day, and nobody to sort of kind of share that. Yeah. This, I would distraught, and it was really hard to take, because I think whenever how I can refer it to is when I did my cruciate or broke my leg and Rob were injured, you're always there to put an arm around them, and I'd be right, you'll be back in a few months, don't worry about it. And that's tough for rugby players, is that part of the game. But then I wasn't in the country to be able to put an arm around Rob and obviously just be there for your friend. It's so hard because you don't know how to kind of react. And like I spoke to you just before we started talking, George, about when you're with Rob, he's the same Rob. He's cracking the jokes. He's having a banter. So when you're actually with him, you don't feel like he's ill, because he's so happy, and he feels okay in himself. Just obviously his voice. So that makes you think, well, why am I upset? If you're not upset, I'm going to show you. I'm going to be strong with you. So it's really tough. But obviously we saw with the game, and for the Jamie Jones, the testimonial game, they had the joint, the turnout, and the respect that's been shown to Rob throughout, not just rugby league, throughout the whole country, to be fair. And it was unbelievable to see. And that game was spine tingling. I got back from Australia on the Thursday and played on the Saturday, and I'd had my nose fixed. I had like a problem with my nose for the last 18 months, and I couldn't breathe. And if I'd have got another knock on it, I probably would have had to have an operation. But I wanted to play in that game so bad that I just thought, crack on with it, and if it happens, it happens. And that's probably one of the. Even though it was just a testimonial game, it it was one of the best atmospheres I've ever been part of, and obviously for what Rob's achieved and what he's done, I didn't expect anything less, to be honest with you. And just touching on Moss, looking at him last week, walking in his kitchen, it's absolutely unbelievable, the turnaround that he's had. I went to see him maybe 10 days when he got moved to Pinderfield, 10 days after the accident, and he was lied flat with a brace on his neck, not knowing whether he's going to be able to walk again. And that was heart-wrenching again. Sat at the side of him, not knowing what to say, but he's such a positive guy. Never met anybody so positive, and he's achieving everything. He's setting himself small goals every day, and he's absolutely smashing it. So it's unbelievable to see. Yeah,
we questioned whether or not success was infectious. Positivity.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
you can't fail to be both inspired and kind of a dose of perspective on your. We've all got our struggles, especially at the moment. But that it's such a powerful shot of perspective. I had an hour call like this with Rob yesterday, and he just wants to know about you. He is so selfless.
Yeah.
He said he has, not been able to get out of the house. He feels he has gone back a bit, but he's still joking. He's still smiling. And he's so thankful for everyone else, and he's kind of like so humbled by everything.
Yeah, he's always been like that, Rob. And I think one of the first things he said was, I'm gonna fight. Don't think that I'm just gonna lay down and accept. Yeah. And that was his attitude when he played. Everybody questioned his size and his ability when he was coming through, but he proved everybody wrong every time. Anytime anybody questioned that he couldn't achieve it, he'd stand up and show what you can do. And Mossy was the same. I remember him saying, I'll walk out of this place. And at the time, you're thinking, that's a really, really big call. And 4 months down the line, he's walking, and it's amazing. And I think that positivity and that positive attitude that we want to try and, get across today, it's really crucial. And even in these testing times now, there's lots of worse things happening out there in the world. And if you approach each day with that mindset of, right, I'm just going to get up and attack it, rather than, Brian McLennan, brilliant statement, don't defend this title, attack it, attack the day, attack it, don't sit back and let it just play out, go and make, go and do something about it. So and them two, Moss and Rob, their attitudes are there for everybody to see.
I told Rob I was speaking to you today. He said, can you ask Danny, what did he throw at me when he opened his bedroom door on the Great Tour?
That can't be broadcast, unfortunately. Yeah, that can't be broadcast.
He passed on his best anyway.
We'll keep that for another day.
We'll keep that for another day. Danny, it's been, we've done almost an hour. We could do the same again. It's been really good catching up with you and seeing you in such good form. I hope we're all kind of back to, well, whether it's normality or the new normal very soon. But it's been a fascinating hour or so in your company. So thank you very much.
Cheers, George. Thanks for having me, Paul.
For joining us. And we'll have plenty more next week on the Rugby League United podcast.
Plays the ball to Burrow.